A lone, long-haired warrior stands victorious on a mound of fallen soldiers amidst a blizzard, a crimson aura swirling around him. The warrior confronts a wounded, dark-haired young man, calling him by the name Ash. With glowing red eyes, the man questions why Ash has abandoned his post with the Eastern Subjugation Force. Ash, clutching a wound and his face contorted in pain and resolve, declares he has come to strike him down. The older man stares back with a cold, unwavering gaze, his red eyes burning with intensity. Holding his blood-stained sword, Ash accuses the man of intending to sacrifice his troops as bait all along. With a blood-streaked face and a blazing golden eye, Ash addresses the man with the pained title of father. The father dismisses the accusation with a cruel smirk, callously remarking on the expendable nature of the wingless and his foolish son. Ash's expression hardens into pure rage as his father formally addresses him as Ash A. Elmheim. The crimson, winged crest of the Elmheim family is displayed against the backdrop of a starry galaxy. The narration introduces Roderick A. Elmheim, head of the continent's greatest martial house, sitting imperiously on his throne beneath the family's glowing crimson crest. In a flashback, Ash recalls how his father, Roderick, once saved his life on a whim, finding him dying in a blizzard while he clutched another child. To repay this life debt, Ash carried out his father's every command, his golden eyes blazing as he fought relentlessly with a monstrous clawed hand. However, his efforts were met with scorn, as a memory shows a younger, bloodied Ash collapsed on the ground while his siblings look on disdainfully. His siblings mockingly remind him of his status as a wingless commoner, highlighting that he possessed no crest to offer his father. The narrative explains that the family's wing crests are the source of their magical power, a power Ash lacked, earning him the derogatory nickname Wingless. Despite this, Ash dedicated himself to relentless physical training, believing his unwavering devotion would eventually be recognized and rewarded. The scene shifts to a snowy forest where Ash and his comrades from the Eastern Subjugation Force are on patrol, their expressions tense. Peeking from behind a tree, Ash's golden eyes widen in sudden realization and alarm. He looks on in horror as he discovers his entire unit has been surrounded, with enemy soldiers ambushing them from the high ground. Ash confronts his father in the blizzard, his voice filled with anguish as he questions if this betrayal is the reward for his unwavering faith. Roderick looks down on his son with contempt, callously dismissing him as a mere tool whose purpose has been fulfilled. Fueled by betrayal, Ash lunges at his father with a desperate overhead strike, his golden eyes blazing with fury. His face a mask of rage and regret, Ash grits his teeth as the full weight of his misplaced trust crashes down on him. Roderick effortlessly parries the attack, sending Ash hurtling through the snow as the young warrior realizes the depth of his own folly. A thin trickle of blood from a shallow cut on his neck does nothing to wipe the cruel, confident smirk from Roderick's face. Suddenly, Ash's siblings ambush him, their glowing red swords flashing as magical crimson chains erupt to bind him. With his eyes now glowing a furious red, Ash uses the chains to his advantage, brutally slamming his siblings into the ground. Ash lets out a defiant roar, blood flying from his lips, as he struggles against his magical restraints with raw power. His brother smashes his face into the snow, sneering that a wingless like him will never truly be one of them. Roderick and his sons loom over the fallen Ash, with one brother mocking that crawling on the ground suits him perfectly. Face down in the snow, Ash grits his teeth in anguish, questioning why his father would save him only to discard him. Roderick crouches down, callously informing Ash that he never had any use for him from the start. With a brutal yank, Roderick grabs Ash by the hair, forcing him to look up. Leaning in close, Roderick reveals his true motive was to obtain the power of the 7 wings that dwell within Ash's body. Ash's eyes widen in utter confusion as he questions the meaning of the 7 wings. Roderick coldly remarks on the usefulness of Ash's mother, his hand beginning to glow with a faint energy. He elaborates that she was merely a vessel to bear the seed he required for his own ambitions. As Roderick turns to leave, Ash reaches out desperately, pleading for an explanation. Drenched in a crimson aura of rage, Ash screams his father's name, demanding answers as his siblings move in for the kill. As his life fades, Ash's consciousness registers the biting cold as he reaches a hand towards the falling snow. With his vision blurring, he questions the meaning of his life as he accepts his impending death. His consciousness drifts into a warm, white void before he finds himself looking up at the snow from a new perspective. His golden eyes snap open in shock as he realizes this strange new reality is not an illusion. He looks down to see the body of a woman lying in the snow, disoriented and wondering where he is. Examining his own tiny hands and feet, he questions if this small body truly belongs to him. Held in someone's arms, he comes to the startling conclusion that he has been reborn as an infant. He looks upon the face of the woman holding him, realizing she is dead or dying in the blizzard. A vision flashes of a man with determined golden eyes, ordering a search for the woman. A group of men on horseback gallops through the blizzard, determined to find the woman before she can escape. The leader of the search party shouts to his men that they must recover the infant for Duke Roderick's sake. Ash's consciousness reels as he recognizes his father's name and realizes the soldiers are searching for him. Lying in the snow, Ash wonders if he has traveled back to the past, to the night he was originally found. With a determined gaze, he resolves to confirm the truth of his bizarre situation later. He realizes that if he remains with the woman, he will inevitably fall into his father's hands. Desperate to escape, Ash pushes himself from the woman's arms, his infant body glowing with a golden aura. His tiny hand, radiating heat, melts the snow as he begins to crawl away. Face down in the blizzard, he struggles for breath against the overwhelming cold. A burning sensation spreads through his limbs as his latent power manifests. Barely able to move, he forces himself to crawl forward, leaving a trail in the deep snow. With his golden eyes blazing and hands glowing, the infant Ash grits his teeth, vowing to survive this ordeal. Fueled by the memory of his father's betrayal, Ash silently swears that he will one day have his revenge on Roderick. He drags his tiny body through the vast snowy expanse, leaving a long, melted trail in his wake. Finally succumbing to exhaustion, Ash collapses at the feet of a mysterious figure in a green dress. A young, long-haired girl spots him in the snow and calls out to her approaching father. The man, identified as Viscount Hyfried, looks on in utter disbelief at the sight before him. Holding the infant, the Viscount questions how a baby could possibly be out here alone as his daughter looks on. Ash rests in the Viscount's arms, finally safe from the biting cold of the blizzard. The Viscount's eyes widen as the reality of the situation fully dawns on him. He looks back in astonishment at the impossibly long trail, wondering how an infant could have traveled such a distance. Viscount Hyfried holds the infant Ash, his brow furrowed as he ponders the child's mysterious origins. Ash's consciousness drifts into a memory of a red-haired infant floating in a dark void, disoriented and alone. The infant, now revealed to have green eyes, reaches out amidst falling golden feathers, perceived as an angelic being coming to save someone. Snapping back to reality, Ash's golden eye widens in shock as his chubby cheek is pinched, jolting him from his dream of an angel. He awakens to find himself surrounded by 4 young girls, one of whom scolds the others for teasing him. Overwhelmed, Ash panics as the curious children grab at him from all sides, leaving him utterly bewildered by the situation. A silver-haired girl holds him as he struggles fiercely, trying to prevent him from getting away. Now a toddler, Ash breaks free from their grasp with a determined huff, startling the girls with his sudden strength. With a look of intense focus, he begins to crawl away at an impressive speed, determined to escape. One of the girls watches in utter disbelief, calling out in alarm at his unexpectedly rapid and forceful escape. As the girls chase after him, Ash crawls frantically, wondering why they are pursuing him as his hands glow with power. A sudden burst of golden energy launches him into the air, making him realize with shock that he is flying using magic. He tumbles uncontrollably midair, still enveloped in the golden aura. Losing control of his newfound power, Ash plummets from the sky towards the roof of a nearby building. Viscount Hyfried catches the falling toddler, remarking on what a peculiar child he is. Ash's golden eyes widen in dawning recognition as he stares up at the man holding him. He realizes with a jolt that this man is Viscount Hyfried, his father Roderick's older brother. Looking at the grand, snow-covered mansion, Ash questions if he has been brought to the other Elmheim family house. A formal portrait introduces Hyfried Elmheim as the head of the Viscount house, a branch of the main family. Ash recalls that Hyfried, once one of the famed Twin Wings, died in a civil war that led to the ruin of his entire family. With a determined gaze, Ash reaches out his small hand, certain now that he has truly traveled back in time. He despairs at the irony of escaping his father's grasp only to be found by his uncle. A woman holding Ash confirms with her husband that the child's magic went out of control, remarking that she suspected he was extraordinary. She comforts the toddler, holding him close and kissing his forehead to soothe his fears. Ash stares up with wide, golden eyes as the woman's hand gently touches his face. Viscount Hyfried watches his wife and the child with a gentle, knowing smile. The Viscount's expression turns serious as he reaches out, declaring that the child harbors tremendous power. He pulls back Ash's sleeve to reveal a crimson, wing-like mark on his arm as proof. Hyfried looks at his wife and the child's reflection, identifying the mysterious mark as the 7 wings. Ash stares in disbelief at the crimson crest on his own arm, wondering how the 7 wings could be on his body. Ash's mind flashes back to his father's cruel revelation, finally understanding that Roderick only wanted the power of the 7 wings. He recalls the memory of being found in the snow, realizing his father's rescue was merely a prelude to stealing his power. Seething with rage in his toddler body, Ash grits his teeth at the irony of being called wingless by the man who planned to tear them away. Held by Viscount Hyfried's wife, Ash looks up as she gazes at him with a concerned expression. Viscount Hyfried's face is cast in shadow as he stares intently, contemplating his wife's question about the child's fate. Ash breaks into a cold sweat, sensing the gravity of the situation as the adults decide his future. Clenching his tiny fists, Ash resolves that he cannot let this power fall into the Elmheim's hands as he needs it for his revenge. With a firm and resolute expression, Viscount Hyfried announces his decision to adopt the child as his own son. Hyfried gently pats the sleeping toddler's head, referring to him as a fledgling who cannot yet fly on his own. Standing beside his wife, the Viscount declares he will take full responsibility for raising Ash until the day he is ready to choose his own path. Ash's golden eye widens as he processes the Viscount's unexpected declaration. One of the Viscount's daughters trips and falls dramatically while her parents look on. The other children are caught eavesdropping, with one asking if they were listening to the conversation. The eldest daughter explains with a blush that they were simply worried about the new baby. Later, one of the young girls approaches her mother, who is holding the newly adopted Ash. The girl excitedly asks her mother what they have decided to name their new brother. The Viscount's wife smiles warmly as she contemplates the perfect name for the child. She holds him up to the moonlight and names him Astor, a new star born into their family. 10 years later, a carriage arrives at the bustling courtyard of a grand estate. An older Viscount Hyfried is greeted respectfully by a young man upon his arrival. A confident 10-year-older Ash, now named Astor, steps out of the carriage with a sword at his hip. Astor gallantly helps his red-haired adoptive sister, Ulfin, down from the carriage. Ulfin thanks Astor, her image momentarily overlapping with the memory of the angelic infant from his dream. Astor follows Ulfin into the estate, a determined and knowing look on his face. The narration explains they have arrived at the Sword Dance Gathering, an annual event for noble warrior houses. The event is described as a place of intense rivalry where houses compete for prestige. Astor and Ulfin enter the gathering, a proving ground for the young swordsmen of each family. Onlooking nobles whisper disdainfully, mocking the Viscount's family and their adopted son of unknown origins. The shadowy figures with glowing red eyes wonder how much more the Viscount's branch will tarnish the Elmheim name. Astor stands resolute before the grand castle, aware that he is the target of their contempt. Ulfin warns Astor not to let the nobles' scorn affect him, reminding him that weakness is crushed at this gathering. Astor listens to his sister's advice with a stoic and unwavering expression, seemingly unaffected by the hostility. Viscount Hyfried explains to Astor that this cold reception reflects the current precarious standing of their house. Standing proudly before the estate, the Viscount states that he wanted Astor to witness their family's reality firsthand. The Viscount then turns to his son, asking if he is disappointed by the unwelcoming atmosphere. With his golden eyes gleaming and a confident smirk, Astor assures his father that a cold reception suits him perfectly. Viscount Hyfried lets out a hearty laugh, clearly reassured by Astor's bold and unyielding spirit. A flashback reveals a younger Ash defeated in a duel, illustrating his past life as the Elmheim family's disgrace. Astor reflects on the bitter memories of his humiliating social debut, but now, with the power of the Seven Wings, he vows this time will be different. Astor, Ulfin, and the Viscount proceed towards the grand estate, ready to confront the hostile nobles within. Two young nobles with arrogant expressions watch from a window, observing the new arrivals with contempt. Astor, Ulfin, and the Viscount stride purposefully towards the entrance of the grand estate. With a determined glint in his golden eyes, Astor resolves to make this social debut a spectacular one. Inside the grand hall, two young knights clash in a dueling arena as the narration sets the stage for an age of chivalry. A young blonde swordsman with a bruised face grits his teeth as he swings his blade with all his might. His red-haired opponent, equally battered, counters with a fierce expression, embodying the expected splendor of a knight. The two duelist swords meet in a powerful clash, demonstrating the raw power expected of their station. The blonde fighter skillfully parries an attack, showcasing the splendor and fame that comes with victory. They continue their high-speed duel, circling each other before a crowd of their peers. The two combatants leap towards each other for a final, decisive strike, as the narration explains what truly defines a knight. The blonde swordsman shatters his opponent's blade with a decisive strike, sending the red-haired duelist reeling in defeat. As the victor raises his sword to the cheering crowd, the narration explains that the absolute symbol of family power is the wing crest. Looking down from a balcony, Ulfin remarks on the intimidating atmosphere of the grand hall. A flashback reveals two of her sisters adamantly refusing to attend, explaining Ulfin's understanding of the event's pressure. Ulfin turns to Astor with a look of concern, calling out his name to get his attention. She asks if he is nervous, reminding him that this is his very first sword dance gathering. Astor replies with a confident smile, stating that he is not nervous and finds the scene strangely nostalgic. Ulfin looks back at him with a puzzled and slightly irritated expression, crossing her arms in confusion. Viscount Hyfried announces he must attend a conference, entrusting Astor with the task of looking after Ulfin. Ulfin protests in frustration, pointing out she is older, while Astor simply laughs and teases her for being clumsy. Viscount Hyfried places a hand on Astor's shoulder, encouraging him to use this opportunity to make connections. His tone turns serious as he warns Astor to keep the existence of the Seven Wings a secret from everyone. As the Viscount departs, Ulfin looks on with a frustrated expression, pondering her father's words. Astor and Ulfin look down upon the Grand Hall, where the other nobles glare up at them with open hostility. Astor sighs internally, realizing it will be impossible to make any connections in such a hostile environment. Ulfin calls out in surprise as Astor turns and begins to walk away with a determined look on his face. He calmly announces that he is going to make some friends, his back turned to his concerned sister. He descends the stairs and confidently approaches a group of arrogant-looking young nobles lounging on a sofa. The red-haired noble looks up with a condescending smirk, demanding to know who Astor is. With a confident and knowing smile, Astor greets the young man by name, calling him his brother Dariz. With a disarming smile, Astor introduces himself as Astor F. Elmheim, their younger brother. Dariz glares back suspiciously as Astor explains he simply wanted to say hello. Another young noble lounging nearby identifies Astor as the adopted child from the Viscount's house. Dariz's face twists into a mask of rage, furious that an outsider would dare use the family's initial. A bloody flashback reveals Dariz and his brother Grian as the two who executed Ash in his previous life. Astor's face is cast in shadow as he recalls how terrifying his brothers once seemed to him. He now dismisses them as mere children playing pretend, laughing foolishly under a spotlight. Ulfin's voice calls his name, snapping him out of his thoughts as his golden eye gleams with resolve. A concerned Ulfin grabs Astor's wrist, urging him to return with her now that he has said his piece. Ulfin's expression darkens with irritation as an unseen person calls out her name in surprise. The red-haired noble Dariz mockingly asks Ulfin if she is not hiding behind her father today. Dariz arrogantly orders Ulfin to entertain them, citing it as a command from the main house. With a furious glare, Ulfin refuses, declaring that no master-servant relationship exists between their families. As Ulfin turns to leave, Astor grabs her wrist, trying to stop her as he insists he is not finished speaking. Dariz's face contorts into a malicious grin, his red eyes glowing as he prepares to reveal a painful truth. He begins to mock their father, Viscount Hyfried, for his failure to protect the king. Dariz cruelly reveals that Hyfried's arm was cut off by his own brother as punishment, causing Ulfin to lower her head in shame. He finishes his insult by expressing relief that he does not share the blood of a loser, making Ulfin tremble with suppressed rage. Ulfin lunges forward in a fury, grabbing Dariz by the collar and demanding he retract his statement. Enraged, Ulfin punches Dariz squarely in the face, screaming that she will not tolerate insults against her father. Dariz continues his verbal assault, cruelly mocking Ulfin for being a girl unable to inherit the family title. With a malicious grin, Dariz pours a glass of wine over Ulfin's head, telling her to wear rags next time. Drenched and humiliated, Ulfin glares back with tears of rage in her eyes, her fists clenched in defiance. Astor watches from behind, recalling his worry that he might not feel any anger upon seeing his brothers again. With a chilling smile, he takes a bottle of wine from a nearby noble, relieved to find his rage is still intact. He swiftly snatches the bottle from the startled noble's hand. Astor turns to a stunned Ulfin, glad that his desire for vengeance has not faded. He effortlessly tosses the other noble into the air with one hand, getting Dariz's undivided attention. Dariz raises a wine bottle to defend himself as Astor moves in with blinding speed. Astor's sheathed sword clashes with the bottle, confirming to himself that his brothers are still the same trash he remembers. With a violent smash, Astor shatters the wine bottle over Dariz's head, drenching him in a shower of red liquid. Astor stands impassively with his wine-stained sheathed sword as his other brother, Grian, cries out in shock from the floor. Astor tastes a drop of the liquid from his lip, dismissively remarking that it is merely grape juice. With a cruel smirk, Astor mocks his brothers, deeming the non-alcoholic drink fitting for immature nobles. A flashback to 3 years prior shows a younger Astor losing control of his power, unleashing a massive blast of golden energy during training. During the uncontrolled outburst, one of his terrified sisters shields another, screaming at Astor for nearly killing them. His sisters cower in the destructive aftermath of his power surge as Ulfin looks on with concern. The narration reflects on the immense and dangerous power of the 7 wings that manifested in the young boy. Viscount Hyfried stands defensively amidst the chaotic energy, questioning his own ability to control the boy's power. The young Astor grits his teeth, struggling to contain the power as his father wonders if they can master it together. A young aide bursts into the room, urgently informing Viscount Hyfried of a terrible situation. A noble demands to know the reason for the interruption, reminding the aide that they are in a conference. The aide nervously reports that the sons of the Elmheim main house and branch family are dueling. Viscount Highfried and his brother Roderick react with shock and anger to the news of their son's fight. Viscount Highfried immediately stands and moves to leave the conference with a sense of urgency. A frantic Ulfin runs towards her father, who demands to know what has happened. Highfried directs Ulfin's attention to the hall as a burly, red-eyed noble grins with anticipation. From a balcony, they look down upon the dueling arena where Astor and Dariz face off, surrounded by onlookers. The burly noble stands beside the Viscount and Ulfin, ominously remarking on the duel's potential outcome. With a malicious grin, the man declares that this sword dance gathering is about to get ugly. With a glowing crimson crest on his hand, Dariz sneers at Astor, mocking the stray-born mutt for daring to challenge the Duke's house. Dariz proudly displays his power as a brilliant blue four-wing crest manifests above him, impressing the onlooking nobles. With a condescending smirk, Dariz taunts Astor, demanding to see his own wing crest. Astor calmly faces his brother's challenge, agreeing that showing off a mere pattern so proudly is indeed embarrassing. With a confident smile and glowing golden eyes, Astor states that he could never do something so shameful. Dariz's face contorts in a silent rage, his red eye blazing as Astor's insult hits its mark. Astor sets the terms of their duel, demanding an apology for his sister, while Dariz counters that Astor will become his dog upon defeat. With a furious roar, Dariz leaps into the air and launches a powerful overhead strike at Astor. Astor effortlessly blocks the ferocious attack, their swords meeting in a brilliant clash of sparks and magical energy. Astor stands poised and ready in the aftermath of the blow, surrounded by a swirl of displaced air. With a crazed grin, Dariz channels crimson energy into his sword, boasting about the power of those who possess a crest. The two brothers engage in a high-speed exchange of blows, their swords clashing in a blur of motion. Leaning over the balcony, a horrified Ulfin cries out Astor's name in distress. The burly noble watches with a condescending smirk, critiquing Dariz's swordsmanship as immature. He explains that the true advantage lies in the overwhelming magic of the wing crests, comparing Dariz's four-wing power to an explosion. Dariz unleashes a powerful, explosive attack, taunting Astor about his earlier confidence. Astor effortlessly blocks the strike, his golden eyes glowing as he questions if his brother's threats were merely empty words. Pushing back with immense force, Astor calmly demands that Dariz show him his true power. Dariz is forced to his knees, his sword trembling as he struggles to withstand Astor's superior strength. A mustached noble in the crowd smiles knowingly, declaring that the outcome of the duel is already certain. The brothers clash in a blur of motion, their swords glowing with opposing red and golden energies. Dariz's face contorts in disbelief as he struggles against Astor's unexpected strength. With a condescending smirk, Astor dismisses his brother's boasts, telling him he talks too much. Astor unleashes a powerful golden slash, knocking Dariz off balance and sending him reeling backward. He stands poised amidst a swirling golden aura, his back to his defeated opponent. Astor reflects on the 10 years he spent mastering his magic, all for the sole purpose of enacting his revenge. With a determined glint in his eye, Astor channels his power and prepares to unleash another devastating attack. He launches a barrage of golden energy slashes, forcing Dariz into a desperate defense. Watching from the sidelines, Astor's other brother, Grian, looks on with a shocked and fearful expression. Astor overwhelms Dariz with a massive surge of power, forcing him back as Grian realizes his brother is being defeated. Dariz's face contorts in disbelief, unable to comprehend how he is being overpowered despite possessing a four-wing crest. The onlooking nobles watch in stunned silence, realizing with shock that Dariz is being completely dominated. Astor unleashes a massive wave of golden energy, forcing the kneeling Dariz to desperately defend against the overwhelming attack. The crowd murmurs in astonishment, acknowledging that the Elmheim family still possesses a swordsman of such incredible power. With his golden eyes narrowed in focus, Astor relentlessly presses his assault, surrounded by a maelstrom of power. Watching from the balcony, a horrified Ulfin looks on as Viscount Highfried clenches his fist, grimly acknowledging the severity of the situation. Dariz grits his teeth and strains with all his might, barely holding back the crushing force of Astor's golden aura. A brutal memory flashes of a man with a sadistic grin, severing another's arm with a single bloody stroke of his sword. Fueled by a cold rage, Astor's golden eyes blaze as he unleashes an even more ferocious surge of power. Engulfed in the golden onslaught, a terrified Dariz screams for his brother to stop, his face a mask of pure panic. From the balcony, a horrified Ulfin screams for Astor to stop, as he is consumed by a torrent of golden and black energy. The golden power erupts in a massive blast, shattering Dariz's four-wing crest and sending him hurtling backward. Astor lands gracefully in a low stance, his sword scraping the ground as the dust from his attack settles around him. Trembling on the floor in utter terror, the defeated Dariz stares up at the tip of Astor's blade pointed at his face. With cold, glowing eyes, Astor mockingly advises his cousin to wear rags next time so he will not mind getting them wet. Turning his back on his defeated brother, Astor looks up at the balcony, internally declaring that he is no longer the wingless Ash. A confident smile graces his lips as he reflects that this realization is enough to clear his head for the time being. The hall is suddenly bathed in a sinister red light as Astor senses a powerful, dark aura descending the main staircase. His golden eyes widen in recognition as he turns to face the source of the overwhelming and familiar presence. At the top of the stairs, Duke Roderick Elmheim appears, his menacing red aura filling the hall as he glares down at his son. With a bead of sweat on his temple, Astor's golden eye gleams with tension as he internally registers his father's name. The onlooking nobles murmur in disbelief that the Viscount's son has defeated the third son of the main house. Roderick takes a deliberate step forward, the nobles sensing that he will not let this public humiliation go unpunished. Astor stands his ground with a resolute expression, holding his sheathed sword as he prepares to face the head of the main house. From Roderick's perspective, he looks down upon the defiant Astor, who stares back from the cracked arena floor. Roderick's face is a mask of cold judgment, his eyes narrowed as he assesses the scene before him. Astor meets his father's gaze without flinching as the narration formally introduces Duke Roderick A. Elmheim. The defeated Dariz scrambles to his father's side, grabbing his leg and pleading for his intervention. With a crazed expression, Dariz points a trembling finger at Astor, accusing the filthy mutt of defying their family. Roderick glares down with a sinister red glint in his eye as Dariz begs him to use his power to put Astor in his place. Without warning, Roderick brutally smashes his hand down, crushing Dariz's head into the stone floor. Dariz cries out in agony and disbelief as his father's immense pressure shatters the ground beneath him. Looming over his son, Roderick coldly questions why the loser is grinning, declaring that one who cannot manage himself has disgraced the family. From the balcony, Viscount Hyfried screams his brother's name, demanding that he stop this brutality at once. Roderick continues his cold tirade, his red eyes glowing as he proclaims that such a failure has no right to wield a sword. Astor suddenly intervenes, blocking Roderick's sword with his own as he demands to know what his uncle is doing. Looking down at the cowering Dariz, Astor calmly states that his cousin has not yet apologized to his sister. With unwavering golden eyes, Astor asks his uncle to postpone the punishment until after the apology has been made. Roderick glares down with utter contempt, mocking the orphan for daring to believe he is a true part of the Elmheim family. Astor stands firm, proudly declaring that as the Viscount's son, he was taught the pride of a knight and the weight of inheriting a house. Roderick glares up at the balcony, his red eye glowing with silent menace as he takes in the scene. Shrouded in a crimson aura, Roderick presses his sword against Astor's, accusing him of damaging the main house's reputation. Watching from the balcony, the burly noble and his companion agree that this can no longer be dismissed as a simple children's quarrel. A silver-haired noble recalls how Viscount Hyfried offered his own arm as the price for his past disloyalty. With a blade pressed to his neck, Astor's golden eye gleams as the noble demands to know what price he will offer. Astor calmly refutes the accusation, stating that this was a legitimate duel to answer the insults made against his house. He turns Roderick's own words against him, reminding his uncle of his belief that those who cannot avenge themselves are unworthy of a sword. With his golden eyes blazing in defiance, Astor declares that he has no intention of giving up even a single finger. On the balcony, a distraught Finn clenches her fists in worry as Viscount Hyfried watches the tense standoff. A light blue-haired noble smiles in amusement, remarking in disbelief that Astor cannot possibly be only 10 years old. A regal, blonde-haired noble observes the tense standoff with a calm and knowing expression. Roderick takes a step forward, ordering Astor to draw his sword as the young boy looks on in shock. Roderick unleashes a devastating strike, his massive sword shattering the stone floor where Astor stands. From the balcony, a horrified Finn covers her mouth, her eyes wide with terror and disbelief. Viscount Hyfried roars his brother's name in a fit of rage, his eyes glowing with brilliant blue energy. Leaping from the balcony, Hyfried descends upon Roderick with his sword drawn in a swift, glowing arc. Hyfried's blade clashes violently against Roderick's, intercepting the attack meant for Astor in a bright flash of power. The two brothers, the famed Twin Wings, engage in a furious high-speed duel across the arena floor. Hyfried lands protectively in front of Astor, asking his son if he is all right after the vicious assault. His question is cut short as Hyfried's eyes widen in sudden alarm, a bead of sweat tracing his temple. With glowing red eyes, Astor grits his teeth and braces himself against an unseen force amidst the shattered arena floor. A flashback reveals Ash's blood-streaked face and blazing golden eye in the moments before his death. A regal, blonde-haired noble with a fur-collared cape observes the scene with a calm and authoritative gaze. The blonde noble leaps down from a high vantage point, his cape billowing as he descends towards the defeated Dariz. The silver-haired noble looks on in surprise as the blonde noble walks towards Roderick at the top of the stairs. Viscount Hyfried places a steadying hand on Astor's shoulder, calling his son's name with a look of deep concern. With a bloodied but triumphant smile, Astor looks up at his father, assuring him that he has protected his promise. Viscount Hyfried looks upon his son with pride and awe, telling him that his performance was magnificent. The blonde noble ascends the stairs with the defeated Dariz in tow, approaching Roderick and the burly noble. The burly noble confronts Roderick, calling his actions childish but ultimately a necessary compromise to protect the main house's reputation. The narration reflects on how Astor, a promising rookie, survived a direct confrontation with Duke Roderick, solidifying his reputation as a rising star. The mustached noble nervously confides in his companion that while this was a spectacular debut for the boy, it raises fears of a schism within the Elmheim house. The regal, blonde-haired noble looks on with grim foresight, predicting an impending age of upheaval and a storm that will fracture the world. A worried Ulfin reaches for the injured Astor, who now has a bandage over his eye, as Viscount Hyfried stands protectively behind him.